SCADpad began as a conversation between President Wallace and myself about the future of urban housing. So the question was, how do we meet the new demands of the 21st century and this global return to cities? So we asked this question of our students and our faculty and our alumni at SCAD: how can design make the world better? So how do you tie that thread of small spaces, maximizing every square inch, every cubic inch, which actually led us to look at parking structures, realizing we have these assets all over the world. In fact, in the United States alone, there are 105 million parking spaces. That's actually 5 spaces for every single car. And we know statistically they're vacant about 50% of the time. So what if we turn our attention to maximizing that space right in the city, right where it already exists? This is an entirely new way to enter this conversation of small living. And when we looked at parking spaces, we realized we had rules to proceed by. All parking spaces come in roughly the same shape and size. So each SCADpad, each living module, each private residence is actually designed around the footprint of a single parking space. So they're 135 square feet each. And in our prototype community here at SCAD Atlanta, we gave every single resident 1 parking space for their private residence, 1 parking space for a private garden, a side yard that's associated with the residence, and then we created community spaces. There's a public park that overlooks some of the best skyline views of the city. There's a shared makers area where there's a rapid prototyper, a 3D printer that's shared by the entire community. So you can actually make the accessories, the shelving, the brackets, the things that you would need to personalize your space right here on site. So the residents share that. And then there's a community garden as well. So you can tend and grow things locally right here on site, where our Design for Sustainability students work to help bring natural daylight into the building through a fiber optic daylight harvesting system. We use recycled gray water so that everything is in a continuous loop of use and nothing goes to waste. In fact, we replaced those 8 parking spaces with 8 stalls for bicycles and scooters. So in fact, it was a 1-for-1 replacement, just a modal shift.
It's been a great experience so far because for me, I really am interested in urban dwellings and also just looking at current issues, and SCAD really challenged us, and they always encourage us to think about real-world problems. So with population growth in cities, Atlanta is dealing with it right now.
The units themselves would range between $40,000 and $60,000. And if you start looking at the land value and the priciest markets for, say, a studio apartment, and then you look in that very same market for the rental costs for parking, there's about a 5 or 6 times differential. So the economics become very interesting. You could imagine at scale, you could prototype an entire community within a parking structure. You could double the revenue for the building for every single parking space and still have housing to offer to a young creative at 40% less than the median rent for a studio apartment in that same market. How do you make all the controls of the space intuitive? So you don't have switches everywhere. The space anticipates your next move and it reacts to it. So the windows have a smart glass film that's designed to intuitively frost and become opaque or become transparent based on the different needs at the different times of day. The lighting is controlled in such a way that anticipates waking up in the morning. It's tied to your calendar, so it's time to wake up for class and the lights come on in the unit to wake you up. So it's really, it's meant to be an immersive environment where the art and the technology are working together with you. It's an envelope around you. The ancient Roman architect Vitruvius, 2,000 years ago, he outlined 3 fundamental components of good architecture, and I don't think they've changed. They're strength, utility, and delight. Strength, you're in a structure, it's built durably, and certainly a parking structure is built to last. Utility, making good use of space, maximizing every square inch of space. But the third one is essential, which is delight. And I think art may provide the best insight into that intangible quality of places we fall in love with, places we can't explain, because art provides that intangible aspect to the experience. And I think that's what you'll see here at SCADpad. What immediately comes next for us is SCAD students will be living in these units over the next 2 months. We had an enormous interest for students to live in and in fact take them for a test drive and see what it would be like. So these 3 units really represent the beginning of a very large question, which is what comes next? How do you replicate at scale? We're going to use these 3 units immediately to learn.